settle in, get comfortable, and let us hit the road. We are starting today's route tucked away in a quiet, unassuming residential pocket of East Anchorage, right here on East 42nd Circle. As we slowly roll forward toward Florina Street, take a look at the houses lining this cul-de-sac. This is a classic snapshot of an Alaskan neighborhood, built up during the massive population booms of the late 20th century. But living in a house up here requires a completely different level of engineering and daily preparation than living in most other American cities. If you are taking this drive in the middle of January, you will notice little electrical plugs hanging out of the front grills of almost every single car parked in these driveways. Those are engine block heaters. When the temperature plunges to 20 or 30 degrees below zero, the oil inside a vehicle's engine turns into a thick, frozen sludge. If you try to start a cold engine in those temperatures, you will tear it apart. So, Alaskans plug their cars into heavy-duty extension cords running from their houses every single night just to keep the engine blocks warm enough to turn over the next morning. But if you are driving this route in the middle of June, the problem isn't the cold, it is the light. Notice the windows on these houses as we take our left turn onto Florina Street. Almost every bedroom window has thick, dark blackout shades pulled tightly down. Around the summer solstice, the sun barely dips below the horizon, bathing these neighborhoods in bright, cinematic twilight all night long. Without those heavy curtains, it is nearly impossible to trick your brain into sleeping. Anchorage is a city defined by these wild, swinging extremes, and the people who live in these quiet neighborhoods have to constantly adapt to the shifting mood of the planet. We are pulling up to the intersection of East Tudor Road. Go ahead and take a right turn, and you will instantly feel the energy of the city shift. We are leaving the quiet residential enclave and merging onto one of the absolute busiest east-west commercial arteries in the entire state of Alaska. Tudor Road spans almost the entire width of the Anchorage Bowl, connecting the towering, jagged peaks of the Chugach Mountains to our east all the way across town to the Ted Stevens International Airport in the west. As we drive down Tudor, you will see a non-stop parade of strip malls, auto repair shops, local businesses, and drive-through coffee huts. Anchorage runs on coffee. Because of the long, dark, freezing winters, there is a massive, independent coffee hut culture here. You will see these tiny little wooden shacks on almost every corner, with cars lined up 10 deep in the snow, waiting to get a steaming hot mocha or a Red Bull spritzer just to jumpstart their morning in the dark. As we cruise along this multi-lane road, I want you to think about the geography of where you actually are. Anchorage is situated in a massive geographic bowl. If you look to the east, we are completely walled in by the Chugach Mountains, which rise sharply into the sky, creating a jagged barrier of granite and glacial ice. If you look to the west and the north, we are entirely cut off by the deep, freezing, fast-moving tidal waters of the Cook Inlet. The city literally has nowhere left to physically grow. It cannot expand east into the mountains, and it cannot expand west into the ocean. Because of this, real estate here is at an absolute premium, and the city has had to become incredibly dense and heavily commercialized along these main corridors just to support its population of nearly 300,000 people. Keep your eyes on the road as we prepare to make a right turn onto Lake Otis Parkway. Make the turn here, heading north. Lake Otis is a massive north-south corridor that cuts right through the heart of the city's medical and university districts. It is named after a small, shallow lake located a bit further south, which in turn was named after Otis Goss, an early homesteader in this area. I want you to imagine this exact road a century ago. In the 1920s and 30s, long before this was a paved, busy thoroughfare with synchronized traffic lights, this entire area was considered the deep, untamed, terrifying wilderness. People who lived down by the water in the original downtown grid thought that anyone utilizing the Homestead Act to claim 160 acres out here near Lake Otis was absolutely out of their mind. It was a dense, impenetrable boreal forest swarming with massive brown bears, aggressive moose, and wolves. The early pioneers had to physically chop their way through the birch and spruce trees just to carve out a small potato farm or a log cabin. Today, as we drive past these bustling intersections, you are driving right over the top of those original, hard-fought homesteads. Speaking of the wildlife that the original homesteaders fought, keep a very sharp eye on the tree lines and the sidewalks as we drive this stretch. Anchorage is a modern metropolis, but it is deeply, irreversibly interwoven with the wild. It is incredibly common, even on a busy road like Lake Otis in the middle of rush hour, to see a massive, 1,000-pound urban moose casually walking down the sidewalk or stepping right out into traffic. They completely ignore the cars, the horns, and the crosswalks. The moose view this city as their own personal salad bar, treating the carefully manicured front lawns and the birch trees as an all-you-can-eat buffet. Hitting a moose with a car is one of the greatest hazards of driving in this city, and it will total a vehicle instantly. You have to maintain absolute vigilance, no matter how urban the street feels. We are cruising north on Lake Otis now, getting ready to make a left turn onto East 36th Avenue. As we make the turn and head west into the area known as Midtown, I want you to settle in, because the story of this specific stretch of road is the story of modern Alaska. Look at the towering glass office buildings, the massive hotels, and the sprawling retail centers lining both sides of 36th Avenue. None of this existed in the 1950s. If you drove here back then, it was just dirt roads and scattered cabins. So, what built Midtown? Oil. In 1968, the largest reserve of crude oil in North American history was discovered thousands of miles north of here, at Prudhoe Bay on the frozen edge of the Arctic Ocean. But the oil companies needed a logistical headquarters, and they chose Anchorage. When the construction of the 800-mile Trans-Alaska Pipeline began in the 1970s, an unimaginable, unprecedented tidal wave of wealth, corporate executives, engineers, and laborers flooded into this city. The original downtown area was physically too small to hold the explosion of new businesses, so the city aggressively expanded southward, bulldozing the forests to create Midtown. Almost every glass tower you are driving past right now was funded by that frantic pipeline boom. This street became the beating corporate heart of the state. The wealth generated by that oil completely transformed the Alaskan economy. It is the reason the state has no income tax or sales tax. It is the reason the state established the permanent fund dividend, paying a portion of the oil royalties directly to every single resident every year. You are driving down an avenue built by the black gold of the Arctic. As we continue west on 36th Avenue, we are approaching the Seward Highway, which acts as Alaska Route 1. We are going to make a right turn onto the highway, merging northbound toward downtown. The Seward Highway is globally recognized as one of the most breathtakingly beautiful scenic byways in the world, stretching over 100 miles south through the Kenai Peninsula. But right here, within the city limits, it functions as our primary, high-speed urban expressway. As we merge north onto the highway, which seamlessly transitions into Ingress Street, I want you to consider the sheer strategic importance of the city we are driving through. Anchorage is not just a commercial hub, it is a massive, heavily fortified military stronghold. Just to the north of us, bordering the city limits, lies Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson. During World War II, when Japanese forces bombed the port of Dutch Harbor and occupied islands in the Aleutian Chain, the federal government realized how incredibly vulnerable the Alaskan territory was. They frantically poured troops, money, and concrete into Anchorage, transforming a quiet railroad town into an impenetrable fortress designed to defend the North Pacific Theater. Later, during the height of the Cold War, Anchorage became the absolute frontline of defense against the Soviet Union, with fighter jets on constant, 24-hour alert, ready to intercept bombers coming over the North Pole. That massive military presence fundamentally altered the DNA of the city, bringing in incredible infrastructure, paved roads, and a diverse population from all over the country. Without the military, the Anchorage you are driving through today simply would not exist in this form. We are traveling north on Ingress Street now. You will notice the street names are changing. As we cross over 15th Avenue, and then 13th Avenue, we are officially entering the original, historic grid of the city. Notice how highly organized the street names are suddenly becoming. The north-south streets are named after letters, and the east-west streets are numbered. It is a perfectly rigid, almost military layout that completely lacks poetry or imagination, but it is incredibly practical. Get ready to turn left onto East 5th Avenue. As we make this turn and start heading west on 5th, you are driving directly into the historic, beating heart of Anchorage. This city did not grow organically over hundreds of years like a European capital. It was mandated into existence by the federal government in 1915 to serve as the headquarters for the construction of the Alaska Railroad. Federal surveyors laid out this rigid grid right over the top of the wilderness, auctioning off townsite lots from a wooden platform, and transforming a muddy, chaotic tent city on the banks of Ship Creek into a booming frontier town overnight. We are cruising down 5th Avenue now. This is one of the premier retail and commercial streets in the state. On your left, you will pass the massive 5th Avenue Mall. But as you look at the solid, blocky, highly reinforced concrete architecture lining this avenue, I want you to imagine a scene of absolute, apocalyptic terror. On Good Friday, March 27, 1964, at exactly 5:36 in the evening, the earth beneath this very road tore itself apart. A magnitude 9.2 earthquake, the second most powerful earthquake ever recorded in human history, struck south-central Alaska. The ground shook violently for nearly 5 agonizing minutes. The clay soil beneath the city essentially liquefied. Right here on 5th Avenue, the massive, heavy concrete facade of the J.C. Penney building completely sheared off its structural mounts, sending hundreds of tons of concrete crashing down onto the sidewalks and the street below, crushing parked cars perfectly flat. The entire city was left in absolute ruins. Infrastructure was shattered, the power grid was destroyed, and Anchorage was completely cut off from the rest of the world. But Alaskans are profoundly resilient. They dusted themselves off, cleared the massive piles of rubble, completely rewrote their municipal building codes to be some of the strictest seismic standards on the planet, and rebuilt from the ground up. The sturdy, heavily engineered, block-like buildings you see around you right now are a direct, physical result of that devastating day. They are built to sway and absorb kinetic energy, designed to survive the ultimate wrath of the Earth. We are coming up on C Street. We are going to make a left turn here, heading south. C Street offers a fantastic cross-section of downtown Anchorage, filled with professional offices, local law firms, restaurants, and historic residential corners. As we cross 6th, 7th, and 8th Avenues, notice how the dense commercial high-rises start to taper off, giving way to a more open, historic feel. We are driving toward the very southern edge of the original townsite grid. Prepare to make a right turn onto West 9th Avenue. As we complete the turn and begin heading west on 9th, look immediately to your left. The buildings suddenly stop, and a massive, wide-open expanse of beautifully manicured green parkland stretches out before you, running parallel to the road for blocks. This is the historic Delaney Park Strip, and it is arguably the most famous, historically significant piece of land in the entire city. When the federal surveyors laid out that rigid street grid back in 1915, they intentionally left this massive, block-wide strip of land completely empty. They brought in crews to chop down every single tree, rip out every stump, and clear the brush. Its original purpose was to be a massive firebreak. Early Anchorage was a highly fragile town made entirely of canvas tents, wooden shacks, and sawdust floors, surrounded by dense, highly flammable boreal forest. This strip was the dividing line, a physical barrier meant to protect the fragile city from the devastating forest fires that constantly swept through the wilderness. But as the city grew and modernized, the park strip evolved with it. In the 1920s, as aviation revolutionized travel and supply lines in Alaska, this exact strip of grass to your left was flattened, graded, and turned into the city's very first airstrip. Imagine daring, pioneer bush pilots landing their canvas-winged, single-engine airplanes right here in the middle of town, dodging treacherous crosswinds off the ocean, kicking up massive clouds of dust, and occasionally buzzing the runway to chase off a wandering moose. It served as the city's connection to the sky for years. During World War II, the military commandeered the space, building massive rows of temporary barracks right here on the grass. Today, it has settled into its role as the city's premier public park, a place where locals gather for summer soccer games, outdoor concerts under the midnight sun, and quiet winter walks. It is a living timeline of the city's history. We are following the route carefully now as we near our destination. We are going to make a quick left turn onto E Street, heading south for just a single block, and then we will make a quick right turn onto West 11th Avenue. We are weaving our way through the quiet, historic residential pockets that border the park strip, an area known as the South Addition. The homes right around here, tucked under the massive birch and spruce trees, are some of the oldest, most charming, and most coveted pieces of real estate in downtown Anchorage. Now, make a right turn onto G Street, heading north back toward the park. We are just creeping up the block now, and right here, on the right side of the street, pulling up to the corner of 10th Avenue, we have arrived at our final destination, the First Presbyterian Church of Anchorage. Go ahead and pull over, put the car in park, and take a long look at the building. While this specific, beautiful modern structure was built much later, the history of this congregation is literally as old as the city itself. In 1915, when Anchorage was nothing but a chaotic, muddy, lawless tent city full of railroad workers, prospectors, timber cutters, and opportunists, the very first church services in the city were held in the open air, right down by the muddy banks of Ship Creek. The First Presbyterian Church was officially organized that very same year, making it one of the oldest continuous institutions in Anchorage. Their very first permanent building was a humble, rugged log cabin built right in the middle of the frontier grid. Through the wild railroad days, the massive World War II military boom, the devastating terror of the Good Friday earthquake, and the unprecedented wealth of the pipeline explosion, this church has stood as a constant, quiet anchor for the community. You have just driven across the entire history of Anchorage in one single route. We started in the modern, sprawling neighborhoods of East Anchorage, crossed the massive commercial arteries built entirely by Arctic oil, drove directly over the fault lines and rebuilt ruins of the Great Earthquake, bordered the historic firebreaks of the early pioneer days, and ended right here at a church that has watched the last frontier transform from a muddy tent city into a modern, resilient metropolis. Thank you for riding along on this drive, and we will see you on the next route.